My name is Corinne. I'm 31 years old, and I live in a two-bedroom apartment in Charlotte with a rescue cat named Biscuit and more houseplants than I can honestly keep track of. I want to tell you about the night I understood exactly where I stood in my family. Not the night I left. That came later. I'm talking about the night my brother got a truck. It was a Saturday in June. My parents had rented out the back pavilion at their country club, the one with the string lights and the view of the golf course, to celebrate my brother Kyle finishing his electrician's apprenticeship. 4 years. He'd finally done it. And I want to be honest, I was proud of him. I really was. What happened next had nothing to do with whether I was proud. Dad stood up with his glass of sweet tea and made a speech about hard work and becoming a man. Then he pulled a set of keys out of his blazer pocket and set them on the table in front of Kyle like he was presenting a crown. A brand new F-150, black, extended cab. He'd already put a bow on it in the parking lot. Kyle screamed. He literally screamed and grabbed Dad around the neck. My aunts were crying. My mom was fanning herself. I was sitting at the end of the table, still holding a dinner roll I hadn't taken a bite of. Dad sat back down. He reached across me to grab the salt. Then, almost as an afterthought, he turned to me. He had an envelope in his hand. He set it next to my plate without making eye contact. "Almost forgot," he said. "Your mother and I talked. Since you're settled now, it's time to start paying your share. Utilities are covered, but rent is $1,200 a month. Starting July 1st. He said it the way you'd say pass the butter. $1,200. For the bedroom I'd been sleeping in since I was 17. While Kyle's truck sat in the parking lot with a red bow on it. I looked at the envelope. I looked at the bow through the window. I put the dinner roll down. I didn't say anything. I smiled and nodded and spent the next 2 hours refilling iced tea pitchers and stacking dirty plates because that's what I always did at family events. I was the one who handled things. I had always been the one who handled things. But something had shifted inside me that night, quietly, like a door closing on its own. I need to back up because the dinner didn't come out of nowhere. Growing up in our house, there was a very clear hierarchy and I was not at the top of it. Kyle was 3 years older than me, and from the time I could understand anything, I understood that he required more attention. He was louder, messier, more easily overwhelmed. When he struggled in school, my parents hired tutors. When he got in trouble, my parents talked to the coaches. When he quit his first apprenticeship program after 6 weeks, my parents called it a learning experience and found him a better one. I got straight A's in high school. I was in the band. I worked at a smoothie place on weekends. I never missed curfew. My dad's response to my report cards was usually a thumbs up from across the kitchen. My mom would say something like, "That's my girl," and go back to whatever she was doing. I wasn't bitter about it then. I genuinely wasn't. I thought that's just how families worked. Some kids needed more, some kids needed less, and I was lucky to be the one who needed less. I got a partial scholarship to UNC Charlotte and covered the rest with loans and 2 jobs. My parents paid for Kyle's first 2 years of community college before he dropped out. They didn't offer me anything, and I didn't ask. I told myself it was fine. I was independent. I was capable. After graduation, I got a job at a property management company doing leasing administration. I was good at it. Within 2 years, I was handling contracts, coordinating maintenance teams, training new staff. My boss called me her right hand. I made decent money for 26. I had savings. But I was also paying off student loans, and Charlotte's rental market had gotten brutal, and when my lease ended, my parents offered me my old room back. "Just until you get on your feet," Dad said. "No pressure." That was 4 years ago. In those 4 years, I had gotten on my feet. I'd paid off one of my 2 loans. I had a healthy emergency fund. I was genuinely ready to move out. But then my grandmother got sick and my mom was overwhelmed, and I started handling more around the house. Groceries, pharmacy runs, appointments, the bills my parents had a habit of forgetting. It felt wrong to leave when things were chaotic, so I stayed. And then the chaos became the baseline, and the baseline became permanent, and I became the person the whole operation ran through. I managed the household budget on a shared spreadsheet. I scheduled my dad's cardiology follow-ups. I renewed the homeowner's insurance when the notice came in, and my parents left it on the counter for 3 weeks. I handled Kyle's taxes one year when he panicked at midnight on April 14th, and then again the next year when he just needed help with one thing that turned into 6 hours. Nobody paid me. Nobody really thanked me either. I was just the person who handled things, so I handled things. That June dinner was the first time I realized there was a price attached to what I did. But the price was only ever going to go in one direction. I drove home from the country club alone. My parents rode with Kyle so they could see him drive the truck for the first time. I sat in my car in the driveway for 10 minutes after I pulled in, just looking at the front door. Then I went inside. I did the dishes from the prep my mom had done before we left. I turned off the lights she'd left on in the hallway. I filled Biscuit's water bowl. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope my dad had given me and I opened it. It was a handwritten agreement. His handwriting, block letters. Tenant, Corinne, monthly rent, $1,200. Due on the 1st, utilities included. Signed at the bottom with a line for my signature. I read it 3 times. $1,200 was what I'd been planning to pay for a 1-bedroom across town. It was market rate for a stranger. For me, in a house where I scheduled their doctor appointments and managed their budget and spent my weekends being useful, it was something else entirely. It was a reclassification. I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a cost to be offset. I folded the agreement and put it in my purse. I went to bed and stared at the ceiling for a long time. In the morning, I did not bring up the envelope at breakfast. Neither did my dad. My mom made pancakes and talked about how handsome Kyle had looked in his new polo shirt. I drank my coffee and nodded and thought about spreadsheets. I spent the next 3 weeks being very quiet and very busy. I went to work. I came home. I started doing research on apartments in my lunch breaks, the way you research something you don't want anyone to know you're thinking about. I'd bookmarked listings on my phone. I ran numbers. I looked at my savings account and felt, for the first time, something close to courage. What I also did, and I'm not proud of the way I did it, but I'm not ashamed either, was stop doing certain things. I stopped refilling the Brita. I stopped picking up the prescription my dad's pharmacy called about. I left the insurance renewal on the counter right where my mom had left it for 3 weeks and watched to see what would happen. The answer was nothing. They just didn't handle it and then panicked a week before the deadline and asked me where the renewal form was. It was sitting in the same spot. It had not moved. I helped them that time because it was a real deadline, but I made a note of it. On the Thursday before the 1st of July, I found a listing I'd already bookmarked twice. A 2-bedroom in a quieter part of Noda, the kind of neighborhood with coffee shops and murals and walking distance to a greenway. The 2nd bedroom was tiny, but it meant I could have an office. The rent was $1,150 for a place that was actually mine. I emailed the property manager that night. I toured it on Saturday morning while my parents were at Kyle's to see the truck. I stood in the empty living room and looked at the windows, south-facing, good light, and I thought about where my desk would go. The property manager asked if I had any questions. I said, "When can I sign?" She said, "When can I sign?" She said, "Monday." I signed on Monday. I gave myself 2 weeks. I didn't tell anyone. I started moving things out in the trunk of my car, a little at a time. Books. The box of things from my grandmother I'd been given when she passed. My backup hard drives. The small things that don't look like moving but are. By the time I was halfway done, my room looked the same if you didn't look closely. I thought about what to say in the note. I thought about it for days. There was so much I wanted to put in it. So much documentation of every time I'd been handed responsibility without recognition. I wanted to write a whole accounting of what I had contributed and what I had received in return. I wanted them to have to hold the full weight of it in their hands. But I knew what would happen if I did that. My mom would cry and my dad would say I was ungrateful and Kyle would say I'd always been dramatic, and by Sunday it would be a story about how Corinne overreacted to a completely reasonable request. So I kept it short. Mom and Dad, I've moved out. I've taken my things. I found an apartment and signed a lease, and I'll be okay. Please don't come to my office. Don't contact my friends. I'll reach out when I'm ready. Corinne. I left it on the kitchen table. weighted down with the envelope they'd given me at the country club. I left the agreement unsigned. Then I carried my last 2 boxes to my car, loaded Biscuit into his carrier, and drove away at 6:37 on a Thursday morning. It was early enough that no one else was awake. I pulled out of the neighborhood and watched the house in my rearview mirror. I felt something I can only describe as the dropping of a very heavy bag you've been carrying so long you forgot it was there. The first night in my apartment, I slept on an air mattress I'd ordered ahead of time and had delivered the day before. The walls were bare. The closets were empty. Biscuit explored every corner with great suspicion and then sat in the center of the living room floor looking at me like I had something to explain. I ordered a pizza and ate it sitting on the floor. My phone started going off around 9 that evening. Mom, 9:12 p.m. Corinne, where are you? Your room is empty. Mom, 9:18 p.m. I found the note. Call me right now. Dad, 9:30 p.m. This is completely unnecessary. You need to answer your phone. Kyle, 9:45 p.m. Sis WTF is going on. Mom is losing it. Mom, 10:02 p.m. I don't understand why you would do this. After everything we've done for you. Dad, 10:15 p.m. You're being childish. We asked for a reasonable contribution and you blew up the whole family over it. I read every message. I didn't respond to any of them. I sat on my air mattress and ate another slice of pizza, and I noticed something about those texts. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one of them said we miss you, or we love you, or please be safe. Every single one was about the inconvenience, the disruption, the way my leaving reflected on them. My dad said it most clearly: you blew up the whole family. As if the family had been intact before. As if I hadn't been the one holding it together with both hands for 4 years. I put my phone face down and went to sleep. By Friday evening, things at my parents' house had begun to visibly come apart, and I only know this because my cousin Terrell texted me around 8. Hey, is everything okay? Your mom called my mom twice today. Said she can't find the insurance card for the car and your dad missed a doctor's appointment because no one reminded him. Are you all right? I stared at the message for a long time. The insurance card was in the blue accordion folder in the file drawer under the microwave, in the section labeled AUTO. I had put it there. I had labeled it. I had shown my mom the folder twice. I replied to Terrell, I'm fine. I moved out. They'll figure it out. He sent back a thumbs up and a heart. What happened over the next few weeks was uncomfortable to watch, even from a distance. My mom called me 6 times in the first 10 days. I let 5 of them go to voicemail. The 6th time I picked up because I was having a calm week and I thought I could handle it. I just don't understand why you had to leave without talking to us, she said. Her voice was the careful kind of control that means she'd been crying before she called. We could have talked about the rent. We could have negotiated. Mom, I said, I found an apartment and signed a lease. There's nothing to negotiate. But why didn't you say anything? Why did you just disappear? Because, I thought, if I'd said anything, you would have talked me out of it, or talked around it, or found some new crisis that needed handling so I'd push my plans back another month. I'd seen that movie. I needed to do it this way, I said. I'm safe. I have a good apartment. I'm okay. Your father is very hurt. I didn't say what I was thinking. I said, I'll call you in a few weeks. I hung up and then sat very still for about 5 minutes. Kyle reached me the same way Ryan had reached Elizabeth in those stories I've read, through a number I didn't recognize. I picked up thinking it was a client referral, and there was his voice. Before you hang up, he said, just let me talk for like 2 minutes. I didn't hang up. I'm not calling to guilt you, he said, which was exactly what someone calls to guilt you says. But I think you need to know it's really bad over here. Dad's all over the place. He yelled at Mom yesterday because she bought the wrong kind of trash bags. He missed a work call because he couldn't find the client file, the one you used to update. I don't update that file anymore, I said. I moved out. I know. I'm just saying it's bad. Kyle. I took a breath. Do you know where the house's homeowner's insurance policy is? A pause. No. Do you know when Dad's next cardiology appointment is? Another pause. No. Do you know which pharmacy fills his prescriptions or what his blood pressure medication is called? Silence. That's all stuff I knew, I said. I knew it because I handled it. I've been handling it for 4 years and no one noticed until I stopped. That's okay. Yeah, that's fair. He was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, Corinne. I think I didn't see how much you were doing. That was the most honest thing Kyle had said to me in a long time, and I want to be fair to him, he was trying. He wasn't malicious the way my dad was sometimes. He'd just been the golden child for so long he didn't know what else to be. I know, I said. Take care of yourself, Kyle. Can we get lunch sometime? Not at the house, somewhere neutral. I said maybe. I meant it. 3 weeks after I moved out, my father showed up at my office. Not my apartment. I hadn't told anyone where I lived, and I'd asked Terrell not to share it, and he hadn't. But my office building wasn't a secret. He knew the company name. He'd looked up the address. I was at my desk when my coworker Paige came to my door with a look on her face that said, "I have a situation for you." She said a man in the lobby was asking for me and said he was my father. She said he'd been there about 10 minutes. I thought about telling her I wasn't available. I thought about it seriously. But I knew my dad. He would wait. He would come back. He would escalate until it became a thing. I went downstairs. He was sitting in one of the lobby chairs looking out of place in his work jeans and his Carhartt jacket. When he saw me, he stood up. He looked older than he had at the country club 3 weeks ago. He looked like he hadn't slept a full night. "Corinne," he said. "Dad." I kept my voice flat. "I asked you not to come to my office." "I know what you asked. I need to talk to you." "This isn't the place for it." "Then tell me where the place is because you won't return my calls." I looked at him for a moment, then said, "There's a coffee shop half a block down. I have 15 minutes. We sat across from each other at a small table near the window. He wrapped both hands around a coffee cup he didn't drink from. I had water. I had chosen my seat facing the door. "We want you to come home," he said. "I'm not coming home. Your mother is a wreck." "Dad." I left my room clean and my key on the counter. "I'm not in danger. I'm not gone because something bad happened. I left because I needed to. You left because of a rent conversation." Something in me tightened. I left because of 26 years of being the person who handles everything and receives nothing. The rent was just the one time you put it in writing. He looked at the table. "We appreciate everything you do. You gave Kyle a truck and gave me a bill on the same night, at the same table." He started to say something about Kyle needing the truck for work, and I held up my hand. "I'm not talking about Kyle. I'm talking about what it means when you look at two of your kids and you see one as someone to invest in and the other as someone to collect from. That's what you communicated, and I heard it." He was quiet for a moment. He rotated the coffee cup in his hands. "We thought you could handle it," he said. "You always handle everything." "I know," I said. "That's the problem." We sat in silence for a bit. Outside, someone walked past with a dog on a leash, a woman in a yellow raincoat. "I'm not coming back," I said finally, more gently than before. "But I'm not disappearing either. I just need things to be different." He didn't respond to that. He nodded, once, at the table. He stood up, left a 5 on the table for the coffee he hadn't touched, and walked out. I sat there for another minute, then went back to work. After that visit, the contact dropped off. It wasn't peace exactly, it was more like a ceasefire where both sides were reassessing. I didn't fill the silence with explanations. I let it be. At work, something strange and wonderful happened. Without the constant weight of managing my parents' lives, I had energy again. Real energy. I started leaving work with my brain still functional instead of already spent. I volunteered for a portfolio audit that no one wanted to take on because it involved 6 months of disorganized records from a previous employee. I spent 3 weeks untangling it. I found a billing error that had cost a client nearly $14,000 over 2 years. I flagged it, proposed a credit structure, and managed the client call myself. My boss, whose name is Greta and who does not give compliments lightly, stopped by my desk afterward and said, "That call was impressive." 6 weeks later, she offered me a senior coordinator position with a 12% raise and the option to move to a hybrid schedule. I cried in the bathroom for about 4 minutes, then accepted. That night, I bought a real bed frame. Dark walnut, simple lines, the kind I'd had on a Pinterest board for 2 years. I assembled it myself over the course of an evening with a podcast playing in the background and Biscuit supervising from the doorway. When I made to bed with the new sheets I'd also bought, I stood back and looked at it for a long moment. It was mine. It was really mine. Meanwhile, the news from home came to me in fragments through Terrell, who kept me loosely updated without me asking. My dad had hired a part-time bookkeeper, someone from his church, to help him keep track of household finances. My mom had signed up for a meal kit service because cooking from scratch when stressed out wasn't working for her. Small adaptations. Real ones. They were figuring it out. Kyle, I heard, had gotten his journeyman certification. He'd been promoted at the electrical company and was saving up to get his own place. He'd also started dating someone who, by all accounts, was making him slightly less oblivious to the needs of people around him. I found this both funny and genuinely hopeful. About 4 months after I moved out, I got a text from my mom that wasn't about logistics or guilt. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I didn't realize how much we were leaning on you. I think I was just so used to you being capable that I forgot you were also supposed to be able to rest. I'm sorry it took me this long to say it." I read it on my lunch break, sitting in a park near my office with a sandwich. A pigeon walked in a circle near my feet. A kid ran past with a kite that wasn't quite catching the wind. I typed back, "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot." It wasn't the full conversation we still needed to have. It wasn't a resolution. But it was the first sentence of something real, and I was willing to start there. My dad texted me for the first time a week later. He asked how work was going. I told him about the senior coordinator position. He said, "That's great, Corinne." He said he was proud of me. Those 3 words. I'd been waiting most of my life to hear them without having to do something extraordinary to earn them. The funny thing was, I didn't feel the flood of relief I thought I would. I felt something quieter, something like, "That's good. And also I know my worth regardless." We have dinner now, about once a month. Sometimes at my apartment, sometimes at their house, sometimes at a place in between. It's not warm the way I always wanted it to be. The history is still there under the surface, and some of it we haven't spoken about yet and maybe never will. But the dynamic is different. I pay for my own meals. My dad stopped trying to intercept the check about 2 dinners in. I think he realized it wasn't going to work and that my independence was no longer a phase he was waiting out. My mom asks me questions about my job with what seems like genuine interest. Kyle texts me memes sometimes, which is his love language, and I've accepted that. I keep the rental agreement in a small carved box on my bookshelf. Not in a closet, not buried. On the shelf where I can see it. Folded, unsigned, written in my dad's block handwriting. $1,200 a month. Start date July 1st. I don't keep it to stay angry. I keep it because it's the thing that told me the truth when everyone else was still comfortable with the fiction. It told me that I had been treating a job like it was love and a house like it was home, and that the only way I was ever going to build a real life was to go build it. I'm 31. I have a 2-bedroom in Noda with south-facing windows and a cat who has strong opinions about my alarm going off at 6:30. I have a job I'm genuinely good at. I have a savings account that makes me feel safe in a way that has nothing to do with anyone else. I have a balcony with 2 chairs, and I sit in both of them because I can. I think about the version of me who swept up messes and changed tires in the rain and stayed quiet through so many dinners where she deserved more. I think about the version of me who believed that if she was just useful enough for long enough, it would eventually turn into being loved correctly. I want to tell her what I now know. You are not a problem to be managed. You are not a function. You are not the person whose job it is to hold everyone else together while quietly coming apart. If you are the one who always handles things, if you are the one who gets the bill while someone else gets the bow, stop and ask yourself what you're getting in return. Not what you're being told you're getting, what you're actually getting. Because there is a version of your life on the other side of that question that has south-facing windows and real sheets and a cat named Biscuit who is annoying and perfect and entirely yours. Go find it. I've thought a lot about cause and effect since I left. Not in a dramatic way, just the quiet kind of thinking you do when you finally have enough stillness to actually hear yourself. And what I keep coming back to is this. Everything that happened made sense, not the fair kind of sense, the honest kind. My parents raised 2 kids and poured most of their energy into the one who seemed to need more. I don't think they sat down and decided to neglect me. I think they just kept responding to whoever was loudest, and I was never loud. I was capable, and capable, in a family like mine, gets mistaken for fine. They thought because I handled things, I didn't need anything. What they didn't see, what I didn't see for a long time either, is that I was handling things because no one else would, not because it was my calling. That's the part that took me years to understand. I had confused being needed with being valued. They are not the same thing. A tool is needed. A person is valued. I had let myself be a tool and then wondered why I felt invisible. When my dad handed me that rental agreement at Kyle's celebration dinner, something in me finally did the math. He had looked at his 2 children and made a calculation. One was worth investing in, one was worth convesting in, one was worth collecting from. He didn't think of it that way, I'm sure, but the paper said what it said. And once I saw it clearly, I couldn't unsee it. Leaving wasn't revenge. I want to be clear about that. I didn't move out to punish anyone. I moved out because staying had stopped making sense. Every year I spent in that house managing their calendars and their insurance and their filing system was a year I wasn't building my own life. The cost of my comfort was my growth, and I had been paying that tab for so long I'd forgotten it was even running. What happened after I left is the part people don't always talk about. Everyone fell down a little. My dad missed appointments. My mom couldn't find paperwork. Kyle had to learn how to separate his laundry. And here's the thing, they figured it out. Not perfectly, not right away, but they figured it out. Because people do, when they have to. I had been so convinced that my presence was the only thing holding things together that I hadn't considered the possibility that my absence might actually force something better. That's not a comfortable thing to sit with. It means I was complicit in my own invisibility for a long time. I kept showing up, kept knowing useful, kept making myself indispensable in ways that never translated into being seen. That was on me too. Not as much as it was on them, but some. Greta promoting me, the new apartment, the bed frame I put together myself on a Tuesday night with a podcast and a cat watching from the doorway. None of that happened because I finally got recognized. It happened because I finally stopped waiting to be recognized and went and built the life I'd been delaying. The recognition followed. It usually does. When you stop making yourself small enough to fit inside someone else's story. I'm not the same person who sat at the end of that table holding a dinner roll she never ate. I'm the person who left a note, walked out at 6:47 in the morning, and drove toward a life that had been waiting for her the whole time. That's the only thing I'd want anyone to take from any of this. Not anger, not a scoreboard, just the understanding that your capacity to handle things is not a reason to be handed more burden. Your competence is not a discount on your worth. And the moment someone hands you a bill where there should have been a gift, you are allowed, you are more than allowed, to put down the pen and walk out the door.